There is a tiny gem that holds a significant place in Somerville history that has been receiving some much-needed polishing thanks to efforts of several preservation groups. The Milk Row Cemetery is a green oasis tucked along busy Somerville Ave. Reporter Julie Frendeck spent time at the cemetery as it opened its gates for the first time this spring.
The cemetery is an oasis along a very bustling commercial area, which is now known as Somerville Avenue, previously known as Milk Row, because this was the route that the farmers took to get their products from Arlington and the outer lands into Boston.
Milk Row Cemetery is nestled between Market Basket and industrial brick buildings in the heart of Somerville on Somerville Avenue. The cemetery opened in the early 1800s and houses over 2,000 bodies, with burials dating from 1836 to as recently as 1975. In 2002, Brandon Wilson, the executive director of the Somerville Preservation Commission, worked alongside the Somerville Historical Society and the Somerville Garden Club to come up with a master plan for the preservation of the cemetery, which has been designated as its own historic district by the Preservation Commission. The rehabilitation and preservation plan consists of 3 phases.
The first phase was to actually do some repairs of the grave markers and such. Some of the stones have fallen over and grave markers, and also to do regrading and to make it universally accessible within the cemetery, which is very important so that everybody could come in here. And also the Civil War monument, which is a very significant piece here, was restored or conserved, as they say, cleaned up.
Stone itself is dissolving in the water and the rain because it's slightly acidic. So I know you've heard of acid rain. So as long as you can keep the water flowing off, the design is very good, because even though it's hardest on the eagle at the top, but the rest, the water comes down and then it flows out over the inscriptions to protect the inscriptions. That's a very well-designed monument.
Then we also did some landscaping site work, and there's 8 tombs that are here, which are people that were buried back again in the late 1800s, or early 1800s when the cemetery was established. And so we repaired 2 of those 8, or rehabilitated them.
During Phase 2, the wrought iron fencing along Somerville Avenue was restored and refinished. Since the fencing dates back to the 18th century, it had to be handled carefully and in a historically sensitive way.
And now we have just applied for what I'll call Phase 3, which is to finish restoring or rehabilitating the tombstone over here. And this is the grant that we just prepared for to the Mass Historical Commission. And the way we were able to prepare that was because we got money from the city's Community Preservation Act, CPA. This is the first round of funding that the CPC for the city has been able to issue, and we were very pleased to get a little over $48,000 from them.
Through the rehabilitation and preservation of the cemetery, the Commission hopes that the citizens of Somerville will take an interest in their heritage and appreciate the historical significance of the burial sites.
I think it's interesting that people that have grown up in the city didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the cemetery for many years because, as I said, it was neglected, and they had a problem with homeless people being here and vandals, and it just basically was not an area that was well attended to. And that's really changed, and I think people are more and more interested in their ancestors.
The cemetery also houses a piece of living history, this striking American elm. Somerville Avenue was lined with American elms until the Dutch elm disease devastated the species in the mid-20th century. This tree has been standing for over 100 years, and in the last year has undergone treatments to prevent Dutch elm disease. As the summer approaches, the cemetery will be open twice a week on weeknights and every other weekend. For Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Julie Frendeck.
The cemetery is the final resting place of both the lofty, such as Samuel Tufts, and the not-so-well-heeled. It was used as a pauper's grave in the mid-1800s. You can find out more information about opening times and tours at www.somervillema.gov.